Today I am excited to be joined by my two co-hosts, Josue Marizalde and Michelle Popendiker. And by the way, this podcast is nameless, so if anybody does watch it and does comment, give us a couple names for this podcast, which is really all about real estate. And what we're going to talk about is what's going on in real estate, particularly what's driving discussion, what are people scared of, what are people concerned about, what should homeowners know about. And what we're hearing and seeing that are surfacing on everybody's mind right now seems to be mainly three things, which is number one, how's COVID affecting the housing market presently? Number two, how is the election and the future of a presidency, which is still kind of a question mark, between Biden and Trump? How's the housing market been? How's it going to go in the future? And is it going to crash? Is it all going to come down like a house of cards? Should we all run for the hills? Should we all buy gold? That's the questions. That's what's on everybody's mind. So, as we start, let's talk about COVID. COVID's effect on housing. Josue, what are you hearing in the headlines, man?
Yeah, well, the headlines are more doom and gloom. And the COVID lockdowns and the pandemic has definitely hurt a lot of businesses. It's hurt a lot, mainly small businesses. But the good news about real estate is that our business, as we know here, a lot of people don't, is that we flourished. And the reason for that is because of the interest rates. The interest rates are actually controlled by the Fed, and they dropped them to all-time lows. We actually broke the record for all-time lows 12 times this year, which is pretty amazing. I mean, we broke the record, and then we broke it again, and we broke it 12 times. Actually, a good graph that we'll have pop up on screen is the Freddie Mac, a government enterprise, records the rates, the average rates, mortgages that that are given, and they've lowered pretty steadily all the way up to this very month. So, I mean, I don't know if you folks kept up with the rates this year, but they were actually expected to rise because they were already pretty low, and we were expected to go up to 4. But we're actually seeing people get rates in the 2s, which is kind of amazing. I mean, for those of us that have been in the real estate, it's great. It's very exciting. A lot of people are able to buy homes for the first time, and it's really great that money is cheap to borrow right now from the banks. People are getting great deals. For the same payment, they're able to buy more house, which is a great freedom for a lot of people. Get that 4th bedroom, get a bigger house, whatever it is that you're looking for.
Sure. And I've been reading statistics too that people are feeling like at a high percentage that things are back to the normal that they expect it to be. So obviously there's a lot of winter changes in COVID's response from different governments, things of that nature. But like there's a lot of people who, and I guess anytime a market exists, it's always about confidence in the market, right? Do we feel it's going to be okay? Are we going to be nervous? And so I feel like we've hit kind of a place where people feel like we know what we're in for, right? I think most major cities, I think even New York City, which is one of the most hard-hit places, they're at like 3 to 4% positivity rate right now. So like everything is, really well, fairly well controlled, from that perspective. So, I mean, obviously there's more cases than we should have, but I think we know where the path goes. But the point is, ever since the lockdown kind of let up, all the people that really wanted to move, it's gone gangbusters, right? So who's moving, Josue? Like, where are we seeing, what's driving people's move right now in the market?
Yeah. Hey there, Jared Jones with CentralFloridaPropertySearch.com, and on behalf of my team and I, we just want to say thank you for joining us on our website to start your home search. Our team does offer you a few things that I want you to know about up front. Number one, we offer you a 10% commission credit. So as a home buyer, if you buy your home with us, you get a credit of our commission back at closing. Number two, we offer you a free buyer consultation. So whether that's in person or over a web conference like Zoom, we can go over your lifestyle goals and your budget and match that up with the different areas that you're considering. And what that will do is cut a lot of the hassle of you finding your dream home throughout this process. Number three, if you have a home that you need to sell, we will list your home for the low fee of 1%, saving you thousands of dollars. So if you do have a house that you need to sell in order to trade to the next home, give us a call up front. let's set a time to go over the home value and setting up a proper plan to make sure that you can trade those homes out with as little hassle as possible. We know on our team that great communication leads to a great result. So make sure you reach out to us whenever you need to. You can call, you can text, or you can drop us an email, whichever is easiest for you. And while you're searching on the site, make sure you favorite different properties that you're interested in. You can even request a showing right from the website. You can modify your search. You can set up multiple searches so that you can key in on maybe a home that has a pool, or maybe search an area as well with no swimming pools to kind of see how they match up. And the site will keep you updated as you go, as new properties hit the market within the search criteria that you're looking for. We look forward to being a great resource to you as you go.
Yeah, a lot of people are moving from these kind of lockdown heavy areas, New York and California. I mean, us here in the office, we got a lot of calls from people moving from New York specifically, a lot moving from California. More mainly for us, it's New York. Actually, Florida is the #1 destination wide for people that are moving during COVID season. I mean, you got Tampa, we have Orlando. I mean, why not move here? We have a very, DeSantis actually just came out and said that there's a 0% chance of a lockdown happening, which is great for a lot of people. Really good news. People want to move here. They want to celebrate Thanksgiving, and they're moving here for the freedom. They're moving here for the beaches, for the warm weather. We don't have to shovel snow here. So a lot of these people that are looking for they're looking to escape certain restrictions. They're coming here and they're finding what they're looking for, which is great for us. For Floridians, we love it.
What do you think, Michelle?
I think it's great for everybody, buyers, sellers, people moving here, enjoying the Florida just like we do every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I saw a website called How Money Walks or How Money Talks or Works, something. Money does something. The website actually shows revenue movement between cities, and the top 4 areas that are actually moving funds into our marketplace are Queens, Bronx, Cook County, so Chicago, and Miami. So Miami is actually coming, towards the Orlando area as well.
Great.
Which is funny because Miami is also a huge destination spot for folks in highly urban areas.
Yeah.
There's so much press going on right now about people that live in these highly urban areas where they moved because it was close to work, and they're spending $3,000 a month for a cubby hole apartment to work out of their closet, and then they got a preschool going on in the next room because their kids are at home, and so they're like, why don't I get to the burbs,
Right.
And so suburbia has become super popular in these just random destinations that are just really beautiful. From a geographic standpoint, it's like I'm out in South Dakota or whatever, those types of places when the people can work from wherever, it's really changed the game from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It really is great. I mean, the thinking it seems like just a year ago, I have to drive to this certain place, so my house has to be no more than this driving distance or driving time from a certain place. And it's great to have that freedom, kind of cut the cord. Yeah. Honestly, it really is, seems revolutionary in our market, where people can just focus on where they want to live rather than their commute to work, and it's not as much of a controlling factor. It's great. It's really great.
What do you think, Michelle?
I think that the trend is moving towards people, even after the pandemic is over, more people just staying at home and working from home just because it's convenient. They've already got the setup. They've already bought the equipment. They know how to do it. It's been working, so why not keep doing it? It just works for everybody. Saves on gas, mileage, car, whatever.
Yeah. We're constantly, day in, day out, we're here at the office talking to people from New Jersey, New York. Constant. We already had a huge population from the Northeast, but it is growing. We're talking to more people from California. And so, one thing that people don't know that they're often learning is that in our housing market, and I think this is probably a statistic that probably is out there on all the leading city groups, all the major populous areas around the country. Unsold inventory is like at record lows. Right. Like we have much tighter inventory levels. So I want to segue kind of out of order what we were even talking about in the pre-meeting, is that whenever the market's so hot, right? Because I think most people know it. They know the market's hot. There are an outlier people saying, I think it's gonna crash. You hear the bubble economy word. And so there's been a lot of news.
With our home, low hassle was a must. Jared was our main point of contact, but he had a team of experts around him to make sure no detail was missed.
Particularly that when you look across, what's trending on YouTube this week. Well, there was an interview with Dave Ramsey, the money guy, snowball your debt and all that kind of stuff, and very conservative approach to getting out of financial trouble. Was asked, is it a bad time to invest in real estate? And so a lot of folks have a belief that the real estate market may not be where you should invest. And so one of the things that Dave Ramsey said was, I don't see any indicator that the housing market's in trouble. I mean, Dave Ramsey's talking about IRAs all day, and he's talking about money markets, and he's talking about investment. The guy he's not a real estate broker. I mean, he might be, but I know he had passed it, but what I'm saying is he's not selling houses every day. He doesn't have a vested stake. He owns residential real estate, and he said basically this, and I think it's good advice, that if you're going to get in the real estate market, just don't erode your savings to do it, right? Like, there is a capital requirement to buy a house to some varying degrees. I mean, in our market, obviously, there are certain areas where we can get you 100% financing. We can even get the seller to pay your closing costs, and you can get in with very little out of pocket.
Right.
And so, Dave Ramsey's core advice was about that. And I want to back up for a second, too. The reason why housing is being more of a concern for a crash is because of the things that prop the market up due to COVID, right? So some of the things that we know that exist is there were forbearance programs put in place. Those forbearance programs, many of them were 180 days. And if you do the math, that is now. The 180 days is here. So there's people that have had protection. We had an estimated 30 plus million people laid off that we know of, that requested benefits because they didn't have employment. And so, with all that being said, there's a concern that there's going to be housing inventory flooding the market. Well, the problem is right now we can't support the volume of people that actually want to buy a house currently. Okay, so that's kind of it leads to understand. I mean, you actually have to have a glut of supply for there to be a crash, and you have to have a complete absence of demand. So the thing is, we have a massive shortfall of supply, and we have a massive, lowering of demand.
Yeah.
So, I think we actually, didn't you pull a graph? What was the headline with home ownership rates, right?
Yeah, home ownership is up. I mean, we were struggling, after the crash, people were kind of hesitant to get back into the market. It looks like after 2016, it seemed like it was rising pretty heavily. I mean, we have this graph that we can put up on the screen for you guys, talking about the home ownership over the years, and it's pretty incredible how it just turned around from going down. Looks like from the low 60s, and now it's in the mid 60s, which is great. I mean, any kind of improvement is just incredible, and you guys will see that. So.
Yeah, you can see that graph. It literally was climbing and climbing and climbing towards the end of the 20th century, and then it just right in Obama era tipped. And obviously it wasn't, I'm not saying that from a political perspective. I'm saying the time frame of when he took office is really, still on a downward slide.
Yeah.
And when 2016, the Trump economy, for whatever reasons, deregulation, continued market movement, the forces allowed there to be a return of housing and home ownership as an interest to people. Yeah. So, that's really interesting. I think...
Jared negotiated the sale price of our home $8,000 over the appraised value, and it sold in 2 days.
That kind of speaks to what we had talked about with regards to people's views. Wasn't there some data about realtors and how they perceived the different candidates and what they thought about the housing market?
So they did a survey of real estate agents, and 52% of agents say that a Trump administration is going to be better for housing than a Biden. administration. Only 8% of agents think that the market will benefit from Biden being in office. 23% of the agents say that the market is going to remain strong no matter who wins. And 31% of the agents say that the election won't even impact the market at all. So there's quite a bit of information there.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think?
Should
What do you agree with any of that?
I do.
Yeah, what's your opinion?
My opinion is just of that, the 52%. I believe that with the Trump administration, if it continues for the next 4 years, he's going to continue on the same path that he has for the last 4 years, which is great economy. The housing market has boomed pretty well in the last 4 years, and it's going to continue to do that. So,
yeah, I for sure. I think pretend President-elect Biden would probably would promote more leasing.
Yeah, for sure.
I definitely think Biden's definitely gonna be more. He'll create a lot more of a lease economy than Trump. Trump's an ownership economy, and it's just you can read about it. There's a lot of Biden's gonna take. He's gonna be like Tyrannosaurus. You know those movies. King Kong comes to mind. You know, if
Right.
you imagine the economies like that city. And
Yes.
King Kong is up the side of the building, tearing and just like stomping on everything.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a pretend president, Kamala Biden.
I have to agree.
Yeah.
Even though he's planning to introduce a tax credit for $15,000 for new homeowners, the experts have said
Really?
it's really not the right time for that because of the supply and demand issues that are
Yeah.
going on right now.
That's interesting.
Yeah, tax
Yeah.
credit. Wow, that's
You will
big.
pop the housing market so hard.
That's insane. Like that's
That's a
lot
good
of
way to
money.
crash the economy.
Right?
That's a good idea. It is interesting, right? So
Very.
Trump, that was a mass. I mean, I didn't hear about that in the election cycle about the change in home ownership as a headline for me. And again, I was paying attention. I really wanted to see what pretend President-elect Biden was going to do, and what Kamala would come up with, and all these kinds of things. And I just, I saw, his suggestions on
And that
True
was-
International Pressure was a good plan.
Truly notable.
That's something I've actually never heard from a presidential candidate in my life.
It was impressive.
So here's the thing. It may not all be roses. One of the things that we saw this week happen that is actually really important news. The Fannie Mae, this is thinking about the two administrations and what their plans are, is the Freddie Mac CEO quit this week. So he turned in his resignation. The guy's like a longtime guy. David Brickman was the Freddie Mac CEO. Fannie and Freddie hold about $7 trillion in mortgage assets.
Wow.
And so asset securities, basically, they're in the conservatorship of the federal government, have been since the market chaos of like 2008. The government bailed them out with like $190 billion in that cycle. And the interesting thing, I think it was...
At the Jones Group, we list your home for just 1% so that you could take advantage of record high home prices. Make one call, that's all. Better service, lower fees.
Jared Jones is the way to go. Call 706-5000.
There was a Wall Street Journal piece that said Fannie Freddie should hold $280 billion in capital. The FHFA says. So the governance over Fannie Freddie came down and said, what you have on asset reserves to protect yourself against a market calamity is not enough. You need $280 billion. From what I was reading on the same piece, they currently hold about less than $40 billion. I don't know how they capitalize like that. It's almost like you're not going to be able to capitalize like without the government's help. The math, I mean, if they want them to hold $280 billion, they're $240 billion short. I mean, in the crash of the market, they were bailed with $190 billion. So it seems like an uncrossable bridge. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how that happens. And so I guess, the idea here Trump was, one of his initiatives was to try to give Fannie and Freddie back to private interest.
Exactly.
To be on its own. And they're not on a path to do that. So basically it looks like the Freddie boss feels like, hey, we're going to Biden. Biden's is going to maintain conservatorship, and keep it, so to speak, nationalized, all the mortgage-backed securities. And so basically, the other thing I think is interesting is, does the FHFA think things are going to be bad? Like, why would you tell them they need so much capital? Like, you need to increase your capital like 7-fold what you have right now. It's telling. I mean, it's interesting. I think that's what kind of triggers people, especially in the financial markets, to be like, oh, this is in trouble.
Right.
You hear certain people saying it's exciting, it's going up forever, and you have people that are very concerned that the housing market's high.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think we just came back from a recovery. I have a lot of clients that they've told me that they're kind of concerned about the market just rising so quickly, and they say, well, it must be a bubble. But I mean, what people don't understand is to kind of step back and look at the timeline of the last decade or two. We're coming back from a recovery. We're coming back from a crash already. So I mean, of course, a recovery from a crash rises faster than just general appreciation. So I mean, we were coming up this because we went down like this, right? So I mean, it's going to plateau, but it's still going to be going up. I'm thinking, and that's what seems like the experts are saying.
You mentioned mortgage rates early on. How they're writing mortgages are different. You were telling me.
Yeah. It's actually there's an index that I was reading an article on.
I'm Jared Jones with the Jones Group, and we list your home for just 1% so you can keep more of your hard-earned equity. Make one call, that's all, and put the home selling heavy hitter to work for you.
Jared Jones is the way to go. Call 706-5000.
Article on, and they were talking about how difficult it is to get a mortgage, and they record this number over, I think they've recorded over 30 years, and it's much harder to get a mortgage now than it was back then. And we know this here at the office. We're having to tell people, hey, start saving up a little more money, start working on your interest rate, get a little bit more working history, and then let's get a house. Whereas 12 years ago, that wasn't the case.
Right.
You could project how much you thought you were going to make next year, and the bank would just write a loan based off your projected income, which is insane, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You could not get away with that. In today's market, it's much harder to get a mortgage now, and it's definitely worth it, though. Interest rates are great, and values are going up.
Yeah, overdue or delinquent mortgages are still on the floor. So they're not 0% mortgage delinquency, but they're very, very close. It's under like 3% still. So even through that time, obviously when the market crashed, it was double digits. So mortgage delinquency is still ridiculously low.
Yeah, for sure. And banks aren't even as involved in a lot of these homes. Actually, 40% of all homes that are owned free and clear. They cannot possibly be foreclosed on by the bank, at least. Of course, you can have other liens on a house, but they can't be foreclosed on from a bank because they're already owned by the actual owner entirely, 100%. So people are living in their homes longer. People have a lot more equity now than they did before. So it's a different market. It's not. I think that the value is supported by the current market and people that want to buy. Actually, things are still going up, which is it's great for everybody. It's a growth in wealth for the average family. Yeah.
What do you think about that, Michelle?
I agree. And right away, Biden wants to spend $640 billion over the next 10 years for access to housing that's affordable, stable, safe and healthy, accessible, energy efficient, and resilient.
Sounds exciting.
That's not in Trump's plan, but and again, Trump has been doing a really good job the last 4 years. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But Biden, has this idea to spend taxpayers' monies, and where he's going to get it. He's going to get it from us, the taxpayers.
Right.
It's just going to cost more money.
Yeah.
For us, and I'm not on board with that.
Yeah. That's a crazy thing, huh?
It is.
These Democrats.
Where is $640 billion going to come from?
They're like
How much?
teenagers.
$640 billion.
They're like teenagers with their parents' credit card. So they are.
That's crazy.
It's crazy spending.
It just upsets me. But
does it?
Yes, it does.
Why is that?
because I don't run my household that way. And
Trump
you know
spends
what?
a
If
lot of
I don't
money,
have
too.
the money, I just don't
does.
spend it.
I'm not.
Not as much. Not as much.
You don't think
as,
so? He's hitting
Well,
some.
well, the bail. I mean, the stimulus was actually pretty massive. I mean, record breaking, right?
Yeah.
Government's never spent that much money.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
And the news too today. I guess it was today. They couldn't pass the House again with another COVID bill.
Oh yeah.
Another relief bill to crash on arrival. Isn't that crazy?
Good old Nancy.
I can't believe they can't get that much money through. I was like, I figured everybody would jump on that.
Why can't they work together?
Why not?
They're unifying, right?
Why
Aren't they
can't
the
they
ones
work
about
together?
unity?
So let me ask you this: the linchpin question for the market is, will the demand for housing persist? Because if the demand changes, the game is over, right? So one of the top videos this week, as I was scanning YouTube and watching the real estate news, was a market advisor who really has. I'm Jared Jones with the Jones Group, and we list your home for just 1%. With 18 years of real estate selling experience and over 3,500 satisfied home sales, you can trust me to sell your home right. No long-term contracts. You can trust my 22-point extreme home selling system to get your home sold right, including photos, 3D tours. When it's time to sell, get the heavy hitter. Make one call, that's all, for better service, lower fees.
Jared Jones is the way to go. Call 706-5000.
Really has a lot of knowledge across real estate, across the stock market, and even precious metal. And she was basically saying, like, look, the housing market's really expensive. The stock market, forget about it. Every warning is going off that you can think of. Like, how are these companies? They can't even give out earnings projections because they don't know what's coming, and they're like record high, getting higher. As far as the prices that they're getting for versus earnings and things of that nature. So her fallback was, we should have, you should buy hard assets, right? So real estate being a hard asset wasn't her recommendation. She was more like, buy metal, like, and I've owned metal, and what happened is I bought it and I put it into a safe space and I locked it tight, and it didn't pay me anything. It just sits there, right? And then it creeps up and down in price, and so, for sure in the marketplace we're in, I can't imagine why anybody would have, super high confidence in the stock market over real estate. Like, when real estate is actually a physical item, right? It's your shelter.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to need shelter in the long run. And as far as demand goes, one of the things that I feel like has changed in the economy now that people aren't weighing out is housing interest in a particular market, one market versus the other. So in 2008, everybody's still kind of like shell shocked because they saw the whole thing crumble. But in the new, in my opinion of the economy and the way the world works now, particularly for reasons we discussed, I feel like one area will win, maybe 3 or 5 other cities are going to lose. So you will have recessionary issues in housing. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm not saying it's going to crash. But I feel like, in our world today, one area that is having people leave, like a New York City, then has a winning housing market who's actually gaining, and it's propping their demand up. So, for instance, while I definitely believe by summer of next year, you're going to have some housing markets that are definitely going to see what someone would say a crash, or they would see a softening. I don't even think it's going to be a crash. Demand's too high. But there are markets that are definitely not doing as well as we are. Like, think about New York. They had series of months in certain counties. They had series of months where there was just decline in terms of how many homes were selling. Like, I think there's certain areas, I think as a whole, that metro area finally in November came above like a year-over-year increase for the volume of homes being sold. There was actually a lot of stagnancy. So I think winners and losers are very hyper-local in the world we're in now. And the way I see Florida, this is my own, I would tell my family this is advice I would give the world, obviously, is I feel like Florida's probably got a solid 1.5 to 2 years before we actually see headwinds, with or without stock market change. We have so much capital coming in from outside areas where people are doing well for themselves, and there's still just, this is a great destination for people, and it's really buoyed us, whenever I think other markets have seen, some tougher spots in the last 5 years. We've not seen that. What do you think, 𝐿𝐴?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we hear it all the time. So a recent article from the Miami Herald, it showed that during COVID, 3 of the top 5 destinations to move to are in Florida. We have Tampa, we have Orlando, we have Miami. So we got, everybody knows why people are moving to here from other states. We rarely have any snow. We have the parks here.
Think you need to pay 5 to 7% when you list your home? You don't. I'm Jared Jones with the Jones Group, and we list your home for just 1%. You save up to $25,000 more when you list your home.
Jared Jones is the way to go. Call 706-5000.
Parks here. We have beaches everywhere. People love coming here. We have great colleges. People love coming here, and the demand is just steadily high. We're the fastest growing state per sheer volume of people that move here.
Sure.
Not percentage-wise, because we're already pretty big, but by sheer volume of people, more people are moving here than any other state. And it's great for values. Those people need a home to live in, right? So, they're going to buy or rent, and either way, the values are going to keep going up, which is great. So for us, yeah, we have a strong market, very strong.
One of the things that stands out is we're an open economy. Like, we're unusual for the rest of the U.S. And, a lot of people are cool with that. There's a lot of people that think we're a super spreader event. But then there's also a lot of people that are actually really trying to escape here. Like, I've ran so many people that are like, yeah, I'm parked here because I don't want to be up north at X state. Yeah. And so they're literally just, spending time here. I had a friend of mine that went to enjoy an anniversary with his wife last week, just came back from New York. And I'm like, man, you must have just fallen off the apple cart, because you should have known, his representation to me was he went to tourist spots like Niagara Falls. There's no one out, he said. The streets in some of the areas that are more populous and that he's been to in the past, they're just, no one's out, So that's a different state. That's a different situation than what we're used to. And so I feel like, too, there's a lot of... There's a lot of folks that are really kind of concerned politically for how their state is managing themselves.
Right.
And I could say that about Florida, but I don't think we're seeing people exiting the state because it's like, oh, I don't want to be as free as we are. I want to leave.
Yeah. For sure.
And I can imagine some folks would be like, hey, I'm in danger. The governor's putting me in danger. Obviously, he's incredibly popular for what he's doing. But that's something to consider.
Yeah, it's true. People vote with their feet, and they vote with their dollar. And
I've never done that.
Here.
You hold a pen in your.
Yeah. Well, people are coming here. So why are they? People feel safe. Nobody with an open state, it doesn't really impact much of people's lives. People are free to be as careful as they want here, but people are also free to go be with family in Thanksgiving. And that's just a great freedom that people have. If you want to stay home, wear a mask to bed, you can do that.
Sure.
But if you want to go spend time with family, it's you have the freedom to do that here. It's great. People are coming. They're coming for that.
So, what do you think, Michelle?
While you were talking, I thought, at least we do have the freedom to go and work and play and do whatever we want to do, be with family. The people that are scared, they have the choice. They can stay home at their, in their basement, like Joe. They can be like Joe. Yeah. Nobody's stopping them from staying in their home, but
sure,
don't stop the rest of us from living our lives,
Sitting
right? Yeah. So
for sure.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, a new poll was done, and looks like 50% of Democrats wear a mask to shower, which is pretty crazy. Yeah,
That's
I bet
true.
they do.
Catch the Rona.
That's true. I would at least use it when you're going number 2.
Yeah.
There's a benefit to that.
Yeah,
there is some benefit.
Yeah.
But you need the really good N95 mask.
N95.
With a potpourri in front.
Dear Lord.
Yeah.
That's not even nice. Yeah. So there was one last point I was going to make that 30-year rates have sunk to 2.9%. That's freaking crazy.
Yeah, nuts.
No, it's
So it all come out in the wash.
I'm Jared Jones with the Jones Group, and we list your home for just 1%. With such a low fee, you'll save up to $25,000 more when you sell your home. Just think of what you could do with all the extra cash.
Jared Jones is the way to go. Call 706-5000.
You got all the Democrat states, I think mainly Democrats, correct me if I'm wrong, that have actually reinstated a lot of
Lockdown.
quote
Lockdowns.
unquote draconian measures, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that because that's what the paper says. So you have that sense of, okay, lockdowns, last time it happened, it was like a nosedive, right?
Right.
The market really shifted. So it kind of makes you wonder what's going to happen in those marketplaces again, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're doing the same thing. Oh, it's only 2 weeks, but it'll probably be longer, you know? And then you have agents that can't sell houses. You have people that can't, you know, there's some mobility restrictions that are going on there.
Yeah.
The other thing too, people's savings go to like record highs during the lockdowns. You know, especially when the government, when the government actually passed the CARES Act, income spike, but also came, you know, increased savings. That actually may be good for the market next year.
Yeah. It could be.
If you lock everyone in, they'll become homeowners.
If
It'll
they're
be
not-
interesting to see. I don't think, if we're being real, I don't think, I think a lot of what I read in the Biden plan, there really is more of a promotion and a focus for rental property. And so, you know, I think that would be really cool to get into on another podcast, is we take apart the Biden plan and then go over it.
Yeah.
You know, just for sake of looking back and saying, remember he almost became president, and we remember we did a show about his thing after the election, and then he was beat by Trump.
They're about to release the Kraken. What were you gonna say?
There's a lot of cracking in the
Yeah.
media. Right
Yeah,
now.
that's
One other thing is that these states that are locking down their citizens, you know, there goes their income, there goes the small business, and right now they're not passing any stimulus bills, and those folks that are locked down are not going to have any money to save because they're not getting it from the government. You know, there's no income unless they can work from home, and there's a lot of them that can't work from home.
Wherever you're watching this video, like, comment, subscribe. That pushes us to the top. Don't forget to give us a name, and don't forget to drop a comment on something that you want us to cover in the future. Talk to you real soon.
Jones Group is the way to go. Call 706-5000.